Velkommen til LØRN&tech, en læringsdugnad om teknologi og samfunn, med Silvia Ceres og venner.
Hello and welcome to a case with LØRN and BI Norwegian Business School. This is a part of the series we are creating together to explore the main challenges and opportunities to creating good AI as part of a BI course, Responsible AI Leadership. With me as a co-host, I have Christian Fieseler, Professor of Communication Management and BI, and our guest is Gunn Drogset, the CTO of Applied Authonomy in Kongsberg. Both of you, welcome. And we will start this conversation as all the others in the series, where I will try to force Christian to tell me something a little bit personal about himself. And then we will ask Gunn if she can introduce herself as both a developer of autonomous transportation systems, but also as just an interesting person. So we'll start with you, Christian. What's your exotic hobby?
My exotic hobby. So we are having the discussion, or kind of like we are going back and forth, kind of like that Sylvia wants to know my most exotic hobby. I think my hobbies are not that exciting, but you will hear actually in a later podcast that we have some of our guests who are, for instance, inspiring writers. I'm an inspiring artist or aspiring artist, and that I was very, very close actually to entering art school. And I still somewhat in some of my work, I'm actually very much interested in combining AI and the arts. It's not so much time for hobbies, but that's the one thing which I really would like to do whenever I have the time.
You are sneaky. You have talked with me so many times, and you have been hiding this all along. This is an amazing hobby, Christian.
It's also quite a tall order, right? Kind of like an exotic hobbies, because like
AI and art. We need to make a podcast about that. So Gunn, who are you?
Yeah, I'm a 54-year-old woman working at Applied Authonomy, which is a startup in Kongsberg. And I've been there since the start in 2018. And previous, I worked in a big company, Kongsberg Gruppen, for nearly 25 years. I'm a Master of Science, Cybernetics or Control Theory. And as my hobbies, I have family and I like the outdoor life, skiing, hiking. I try to learn new things. That is something I do. I've started with trying to learn to sew. And the last thing I started with was to volunteer for the Red Cross. So that is the last thing I did. And I'm also into arts, but that is music. I love music and going to concerts and such things.
What music do you prefer?
It's funk, rock, everything. Yeah.
Music. Yeah,
I love music. Yeah.
You know, I kind of keep rediscovering music, because for a very long time I've been listening to books. Every time I'm in my car, I turn on a book and, focus on that. And lately I've been really, really tired after 2 years of Corona and all kinds of other troubles. And I've noticed that I really need to turn on music, and I need to turn on music I like. And it could be Bob Dylan in my case. It could be Doors. It could be Dire Straits. That works really well. And, it has an effect on us humans that shouldn't be underestimated in these digital times, I think.
I agree. Yeah.
Very cool. So, Mr. Professor Christian, why are we having this conversation?
With Gunn, I think what is really interesting, what we found really interesting with your work is that you deal with, when it comes to AI, right, and doing that well, with actually something which is very challenging, right? Because, it's one thing to essentially have something which, and I'm now using very imprecise language, but it's one thing to have your AI in somewhere in the computer, but what you and your colleagues are developing, right, is essentially AI in the physical world. You're working on software to make autonomy, part of our everyday life. But that then also happens where we are also in our everyday life, right? You're essentially bringing AI to places, to the streets, to the real world. And what I found interesting, kind of talking to you, is the many thoughts that go into it, right? The regulatory aspects, the talking with community aspects, the getting the technology right, getting the business models right. So everything which actually makes bringing AI into the real world complex, right? And how you deal with that and what type of thoughts you put into doing that well.
AI in practice in a sector that is a very front runner in the field, right?
Yeah, we work with automated and autonomous vehicles and look towards both public transport and logistics transport and road maintenance. So we have different kinds of domain that we work in. And the vehicles, either they are manually driven or more autonomous, are digitized and have functionality inside, which can produce more and more possibilities, services, more safety, more new utilization for everybody. And it is also important that the vehicles nowadays are able to deliver data and function as sensors that can, for the fleet owner of a vehicle fleet, can use to monitor, improve the transport processes, and make and ensure a more sustainable operation, because that is something that is important in the future, and that is something we do. We collect data from vehicles, from road infrastructure, from logistics systems, from different public transport systems, and combine this to create a safe and optimized operation of the vehicles. So that is why data is becoming so important. And then you can build on the smartness.
Good.
Yeah.
We need to give people a few pictures. So there are lots of very kind of advanced concepts here, and even the concept of automated or autonomous vehicles. So I want us to go back to an autonomous vehicle. But the picture I'm having in my head is either a self-driving minibus or, a self-driving plow that might be cleaning the roads, or it could be cleaning the tracks at an airport, for example. Yep. Mm-hmm. So those are the sort of vehicles you are not necessarily developing, but you would buy vehicles, create this necessary integration, and then roll them out, right?
Yeah, we do integrate different kinds of autonomous vehicles into our platform, and create services for the customer, because we are not the end customer. We have other customers that use them, and it could be shuttles, which you probably have seen in Oslo or in Kongsberg or in Drammen, and we are also having logistics operations, small.
That means trucks in a trucks. Mine, for example.
Yeah, it could be in a mine. Yeah, or for instance,
moving, or a harbor. Yeah.
Yeah, harbor and airport, and moving goods. And the important thing is we have if you have an autonomous vehicle, you still have so many processes that should be connected to move these goods. And that is what we're looking at for the automated process of the transportation, because it's important to think about what kind of process you are optimizing.
So I can see the applicability of autonomy on some of these service vehicles or logistics vehicles, or even on these shuttle vehicles, better than in most other. So we talk of services or needs. We talk a lot about self-driving cars, but for a car to have to be able to go everywhere on any kind of a road, it's very, very long path to get there in a really safe and user-friendly way. But if a shuttle is always going the same round, and it can learn to know that route extremely well, and the route can be even adjusted a little bit to that shuttle with sensors, for example, or if you need to drive several snow plows, for example, in a row next to each other in order to get the job done, then it's perfectly suited for automation or autonomy.
Yeah, and that is the most important thing, is to find that use case that these kinds of vehicles are suitable for, and pilot and learn how this is working and what kind of data you need to support them, because they're not able to perform everything themselves, even though they are called autonomous, because they need to have a task to do. They need to be told what to do, and they need to be monitored, maybe because someone is wondering where their vehicles are, and somebody's going to have some KPIs, deliver KPIs to the boss, saying how well they perform or the business is going, because this is a part of how you are creating your business, I think. So does it fit in the process, and does it fit in the service that you will provide? So
can I ask you, what is the most difficult thing to do here? What is the real crux of responsibility in developing these systems?
We thought that the autonomous vehicle should be more mature in this in 2022 than it maybe are. They are still struggling a bit handling the situations around them, because they are changing so much. It's complex, and they mitigate the complexity by driving slow or stopping. And if you drive slow or stop often, the service is not very good. So that is one thing that is haven't come that far as we hoped for now. But that even though they are able to drive faster, they are still need to have connection to other systems, either other vehicles or infrastructure, and other your task, the logistics systems, for instance. And we have not yet, all these things are not standardized, how you integrate it and communicate around it. So that is a thing that we work with, and trying to do that for the customer, so that the customer doesn't have to integrate and take care of every aspect that is needed around this fleet. So that is work. Then you have the regulations. In Norway today we have laws that say that we are allowed to drive in mixed traffic, but we need to apply for each time, and we also need to have a safety operator on board. And as long as you need to have an operator on board, it's not cost efficient. And then then the business part of it is not accelerating as we could want to.
Can I ask you, and I'd like Christian also to help me, in this direction. I'm wondering if our regulations are in some ways also stopping the development here, because, you know, I'm sitting on the board of a public transportation company, Ruter, and I noticed that both our, you know, goals and our bylaws and also the regulation that deals with us is you know, very precise and very much based on 150 years of experience with, you know, vehicles going on tracks and the old idea of what transportation is. And it's actually stopping us from being able to do efficient systems with this completely new way of doing transportation.
Yes, I think so also, because the regulators are used to approve conventional vehicles, and then they check that brakes, you know, it's important to have good brakes. The digitized vehicles are having a lot of software on board. They have software that controls the brakes. And what happens when you change the software? What happens to the functionality of the vehicle? And that is something that the legislator and the regulators need to learn. How software controlling the vehicle is can be a possibility and also be a risk for safety and operations. So that is, and we work together with the government and the municipality and the county to innovate both on the technology, the business models, and also the regulations. So that is very important that we work together with that. So because everybody needs to, at this phase, learn and also improve or change the process.
I like the idea here of working together with regulators, right? Because I think maybe a lay, uninformed opinion can be, these regulators, they're holding us back, right? Why can't we just learn by having that out on the streets? But you can equally as well make maybe an argument that through regulation, you learn, right? At least if regulation is open enough to treat it somewhat as a sandbox, something to figure out something together, and which might even be a some form of down the road competitive advantage, right? Essentially building safer solutions than just building it on your own, or at least what I would imagine.
Yeah. I think it's important that we work together, and that is also something that Norway has been in the forefront of, working in the ecosystem, and that I think it's maybe it's our possibility here to make new businesses.
May I ask something as a layperson? I don't know whether it's kind of like your corporate secret, but how does that look in practice? So because I think kind of the ability to build software for autonomy, I think is something very specialized, right? Something where there might not be that many designers, not that many programmers. How does a regulator work together with you? How can they understand how the systems work? Is that something which only how do you essentially create an equal footing between the people that need to create some type of oversight or understanding? Just for my lay understanding, does the regulator, do they also have software engineers, or how does that work in practice?
No, I think when we apply for driving, in a route, we need to provide documentation of what the capability of the vehicle is, what kind of weather and conditions and routes it is allowed to drive, and that might be test documentation, design documentation from the OEM provider, and together with the planned area and the routes and the risk assessment done in that area, we provide information to this legislator or the regulators. So that is the process, and but they should, of course, bring some software competence into their organization, because there are new things happening all the time. As you said, you have a modern EV, you get new software over the air at night, and in the morning you have a different car. What does that do with your training, your the certification? What kind of things happen there? So it's not only an issue for autonomous vehicles, but it's also an issue for modern manual vehicles that is connected. So that is, I think it's important.
I have to ask you one question in consequence of Christian's question, and it is ownership of data. For what I'm worried about is a situation where, let's say I'm driving my Tesla, and Silicon Valley servers know eventually more about my both driving habits, but also about the movement of people in Norway than our own regulators and our own traffic institutions. This is very important for both development of our roads, development of our infrastructure, but also for regulating our traffic in the future. So basically, I just want to underline how important it is, and what do you think about it in terms of that we have to develop some of these vehicles and some of these systems so that we also own the data and keep in the driver's seat, as to speak, for the future development of these things and society.
Yeah, it is important that we have access to the data and have the possibility to share it. The road authorities are very interested in looking at this data. So they are working a lot with data management and how they should rig the system for the future. And of course, if we have only a few OEMs that is from abroad and are not willing to share the data, that they will probably kill the business for us. But I think coming from a business company that was very protective of information, this is a new word for me, because we are talking about data sharing all the time, and that's it's difficult. But more and more OEMs are seeing that this is necessary, and their own business models is changing. They're not car producers anymore; they are software companies with new business models. So they are extremely both worried and, of course, looking for new possibilities in this new market, I think. So and that is important for Norway, because we don't have any vehicle productions. So we need to grab this data part. I think that is important for us in Norway.
I'm going to jump in with one more, and it is, Christian, when you're talking to your students who are nominally studying something related to management, is it difficult to explain to them that the companies they're going to be managing are more of software companies than, let's say, a car company? Or, because what I just heard Gunn say is that, what they're building is more of a software thing than of a traditional vehicle, right? And how does that change, what managers need to be thinking or doing?
So I think maybe by virtue of being younger than me, I think our students most likely understand it better at face value, right? Because what I find interesting that when you talk to younger people, that, for instance, the decision to buy a device or a car is also by now governed by what the technology, what the software is in that car, right? Kind of like, I think for people my generation, not that old, but older, I wouldn't bother so much, for instance, kind of like how my navigation system feels or not. I think the younger you get, I think these components make more of a difference. And I'm saying that now because I think there is maybe more of an intuitive understanding of the role and the importance of software. However, and I think that is independent of whether you're a student or a professor or a professional. I think what we often tend to forget when it comes to managing these systems is that that managing software is quite complex, and I guess more complex than we would initially imagine, right? I mean, it's kind of like easy to say, oh, my car now has a software layer, but it comes with so many things, right? And maybe even more than just a physical product, then dimensions which you also discussed about data sharing and data governance come into play. The things of upgradability about the product essentially being a constant quote unquote beta, right? Something which develops over the air, software updates and all that. So I think, and to answer your question a little bit long-windedly, I think there is understanding, yes, but I think we all are a little bit quote unquote challenged in understanding the very dynamic nature when products or become essentially not services, but something which is more or less constantly in flux and has many, many different codependencies.
I guess this goes to Gunn as well. You know, what defines a good service? What defines a good vehicle? Before it might have been its hardware, robustness or feel, or, you know, and now it might be its constant and continual upgradability, or its ability to learn quickly from the data, or, you know, what is a good vehicle in the future, Gunn?
Yeah.
What is the best vehicle?
I'll tell you what the best vehicle is, but but I see from my vehicle, my private car, I have a fairly new car, and I see and get updates once in a while, but the many is very updated with the app. How you can control your vehicle from the living room, not driving, but controlling the heating and the charging and such thing. So I'm not sure. I think we will choose cars that provides a good service for what is important for me. Someone is choosing shared solutions. They can share a car when they need it. Someone wants to have the private car. But I think cars that are smaller or more, or if you're talking about these buses, such things, could be important for developing services for people who haven't had the possibility yet to take a bus, because there are straight lines services today, and I think I'm not sure what the best car will be, but it certainly will have to work and give the impression that I'm moving. For instance, if it's me, it's not stopping. It has a good service. It doesn't have to go very fast, maybe, but it has to be show progress. But I'm not sure what's the best car.
But it's really interesting to hear you reason as you're reasoning now, because I think this is the way we are going to try to figure out really the opportunities as well in this new identity of a car, or actually, Christian, for new identity of many of the services that have become digitalized, right? Or AI driven even more. And I heard you say, you know, maybe some of us will like to have these shared solutions. Maybe some of us, and that's probably very much driven by sustainability and so on. Some of us will want as much flexibility as possible. So personally, I live somewhere where it takes me at least 15 minutes to the closest bus station. It's actually 25 now with all the building going on. And for me, that's too much, right? So what I need is this capillary transport that will bring me to the big bus or to the big train station. I like the idea that my car is developing as quickly as, AI is developing. So that concept of continuous improvement is important to me, maybe not to somebody else. So I think there'll be many ways of solving this future. And I also heard you say fun. You didn't say fun, but you drive Mini. So some people will want that, and maybe they will view their car as their health station or their entertainment station or their social moment of the day. And I think exploring these opportunities, both in industrial settings, like your types of vehicles, or in personal settings, is going to be a necessary part of market development going forward.
Yeah, and to know what is value for the customer, that is always important, and it's changing, and it's difficult to hit the target because people are different, businesses are different, what they have as value for the transport and requirements. So, but I guess that the private transport is the most difficult or diverse for that, because we are quite different. But for logistics, if they have transport from A to B with some goods, for instance, that needs to be for us it's the important to customers typically, but they have different ways of doing this process. Some can plan long ahead to do it, start early with the transportation. Someone has urgent needs, so the systems around need to be fit to that as well. So they are different.
Christian, towards the end of our conversation, what is your main takeaway, and what's the one idea you really want to extract from Gunn's head?
I mean, what I get a better understanding now after having talked to you is the complexity that goes into what you do, right? The many different constituencies that you have to talk to, this interplay between what is commercially viable, what is socially viable, what is technically viable. I also, by the way, find the discussions which we were having about not necessarily building vehicles, right? Because we always assume, there's this one vehicle builder and that is it, but that essentially somebody also takes transportation hardware and makes it into systems. That was very instructive for me, right? This idea of that there's an additional layer of activity, of work, of also design challenges, right? Because if you're obviously a systems integrator, you deal with systems, which makes it that's the aforementioned point about constituencies and all that very complex. And I find this complexity of your tasks, your job, right, what you're dealing with, really, really interesting. Also tells us, of course, a lot about when you want to do that responsibly, that you have so many touch points that you want to do well. That was really interesting to me.
For me as well, Gunn, I have to say this idea that you're not just developing vehicles, you're developing systems of transportation. And you have to think about, both the roads and the sensors and the vehicles and the users and the use case industrially, and balance effectiveness or the attractiveness of the service with the available regulation, and keep developing that regulation so it actually allows the necessary growth and development. Super interesting. It connects also to a conversation we will have later related to, how does regulation and law provide space for innovation? Is there anything else, Gunn, you think we should underline for our dear students that need to understand, what's responsible digital innovation and development for the future?
For us, I think it's important to ask when you're doing what kind of value are you want to create for a customer, and what kind of questions are you do you want answer for when you're going to digitize things and collect data, because then you can select the correct systems and data quality and such things. That is important because you have to have a kind of vision on what is the value and what kind of answer do you want from your data, and that is also to the AI part and the machine learning part. As well as I am a technician and I love the technology, that is not the most important. It's just a tool to create systems for the customer that's attractive and safe. Yeah.
Christian, do you have some famous final words?
Famous final words? Hopefully not yet. I mean,
we're not ready yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, of course, I don't want this conversation to end, but I think we're nearing the end mark. But no, nothing else than sharing thanks for sharing all your experience with us. That was really wonderful to actually learn as a layperson how this actually works in practice, right? And what type of decisions you need to make. Mm-hmm.
Thank you both for a very inspiring and educational chat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Du har nå lyttet til en podcast fra LØRN&nbsp, en læringsdugnad om teknologi og samfunn. Nå kan du også få et læringssertifikat for å lytte til denne podcasten på vårt online universitet LØRN&nbsp.